Chapter 4. How Candide met his old philosophy tutor, Dr. Pangloss, and what followed. Candide, touched more by compassion than by horror, gave the repugnant beggar the 2 florins he had been given by his good Anabaptist friend Jacques. The phantom stared at him, burst into tears, and flung himself around his neck. Candide recoiled. "Alas," said one wretch to the other, "do you not recognize your dear Pangloss?" "What do I hear? Is that you, my dear master? You, in this terrible condition? What misfortune has befallen you? Why are you no longer in the finest of all castles? What has become of Mademoiselle Cunegonde, that pearl among women, that masterpiece of nature?" "I am at the end of my strength," Pangloss said. Candide immediately led him to the Anabaptist stable, where he gave him a little bread to eat. When Pangloss had recovered, Candide asked him again, "Well, what has become of Cunegonde?" "She is dead," the other replied. Candide fainted at the word. His friend revived him with some bad vinegar he happened to find in the stable. Candide opened his eyes. "Cunegonde dead? Oh, best of all worlds! Where are you? But what illness did she die of? Surely not from having seen me driven out from the fine castle by his lordship, her father, with kicks to the backside." "No," Pangloss replied. "She was disembowelled by vulgar soldiers, after she was raped as much as one can be. His lordship tried to defend her, but they bashed his head in, and her ladyship, the Baroness, was hacked to pieces. As for my poor pupil, he met the same fate as his sister. And as for the castle, not a stone was left standing, not a barn, not a sheep, not a duck, not a tree. But we were well avenged, for the others did exactly the same to a neighbouring barony belonging to a vulgar lord." At this account, Candide fainted again. But regaining his senses, and having said everything he had to say, he asked about the cause and effect, and the sufficient reason that had reduced Pangloss to such a pitiful state. "Alas, it was love," Pangloss replied. "Love, the consoler of mankind, the preserver of the universe, the soul of all sensitive beings. Tender love." "Alas," Candide said, "I have known that love, the sovereign of hearts, the soul of our soul. It never brought me more than a kiss and 20 kicks to the backside. How could this fine cause produce in you such an abominable effect?" Pangloss replied as follows. "Oh, my dear Candide, you knew Paquette, our august Baroness's pretty maid. In her arms I tasted the delights of paradise, which produced these torments of hell you see devouring me. She was infected by the disease, and perhaps died of it. She had received the gift from a very learned Franciscan, who took pains to trace the disease back to its source. He was given it by an old countess, who had it from a cavalry captain, who owed it to a marquise, who got it from a page, who had received it from a Jesuit, who as a novice had it in direct line from one of Christopher Columbus' companions. As for me, I will not give it to anyone, for I am dying. Oh, Pangloss, what a strange genealogy! Candide exclaimed. Isn't the devil at the root of it? Not at all, the great man replied. It was an indispensable thing in the best of all possible worlds, a necessary ingredient. For if Columbus on an island of the Americas had not caught this illness that poisons the sources of generation, often even hindering generation, a disease that is evidently the opposite of the grand purpose of nature, we would have neither chocolate nor cochineal. I must also point out that until today this illness, like controversy, has been limited to our continent. Turks, Indians, Persians, Chinese, Siamese, and the Japanese do not know it yet. But there is sufficient reason for them to become acquainted with it in their turn over the next few centuries. In the meantime, it had made astonishing progress among us, above all among the great armies of honest, well-brought-up mercenaries, who decide the destiny of nations. One can be certain that when 30,000 men fight in a battle, ranged against the same number of troops, there are on each side about 20,000 men with the pox. How admirable, Candide said. But you have to be cured. How can I be? Pangloss replied. I don't have a sou to my name, my friend. And in the whole expanse of our globe, you will neither be bled nor given an enema without paying, or without someone paying for you. This last statement decided Candide. He went to throw himself at the feet of his charitable Anabaptist friend Jacques, and painted such a touching picture of the state to which Dr. Pangloss had been reduced, that the good man did not hesitate to take him in. He had him cured at his expense, and during the treatment Pangloss lost only an eye and an ear. Pangloss could write nicely and was well versed in arithmetic. Jacques the Anabaptist made him his bookkeeper. At the end of 2 months, having to go to Lisbon on business, he took the 2 philosophers with him on the boat. Pangloss explained to him how everything could not be better, but Jacques was not of that opinion. Men must have had a corrupting effect on nature, the Anabaptist said, for though they are not born wolves, they have become wolves. God has given them neither 24-pounder cannons and bayonets, and yet they have made bayonets and cannons to destroy each other. I could also cite the bankrupts and the law that seizes their goods in order to deprive the creditors of their money. All of that what was necessary, the one-eyed doctor replied. Individual misfortunes result in the general good, with the consequence that the more individual misfortune there is, the more everything is for the best. While he was reasoning thus, the sky darkened, the winds blew from the 4 corners of the earth, and the ship, already within sight of the port of Lisbon, was assailed by the most terrible storm.